Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. She doesn't roar, she doesn't beg, she doesn't chase, yet somehow everyone watches her like she might burn the whole room down with a whisper. Ever noticed how some women can walk into a room and instantly change the temperature without saying a word? No drama, no spotlight hogging, no fake confidence, just presence. That's the Sigma female. And no, she's not trying to be mysterious. You just don't know how to read someone who genuinely doesn't care if you understand her or not. Psychologists have long known that nonverbal dominance, eye contact, stillness, detachment, can evoke more fear and awe than shouting or showboating. Sigma females don't intimidate by doing something. They intimidate by doing almost nothing, and it works. And here's the wild twist. Most people can't tell if they want to date her, compete with her, or just get out of her line of sight before she exposes their soul. Spoiler alert, she usually does. So buckle up, because what you're about to learn isn't about how Sigma females try to intimidate. It's about how they accidentally make others uncomfortable just by being exactly who they are. Let's dive into 12 brutally honest, extraordinary ways Sigma females intimidate others without even lifting a finger. Number 1. She doesn't just walk alone, she thrives there. She doesn't just walk alone, she thrives there. And that's what truly unsettles people. Most are conditioned to find safety in numbers, comfort in crowds, and meaning through external approval. The Sigma female doesn't operate on any of those defaults. She doesn't need a group chat to feel connected or constant attention to feel alive. Her silence isn't loneliness. It's peace. Her solitude isn't a weakness, it's her sanctuary. And that rattles people to the core. We live in a world that subtly shames independence. If you're too quiet, you're called cold. If you like your own space, you're labeled antisocial. If you're not constantly posting your life for public consumption, people assume something must be wrong. The Sigma female doesn't just break these rules, she acts like they never existed in the first place. And that unbothered energy, it disturbs people who rely on constant affirmation just to feel okay. She doesn't seek validation, not because she's arrogant, but because she's built her identity in private, without needing anyone to clap for it. Her goals aren't fueled by envy or competition. She's not trying to win. She's trying to be. And people who are constantly performing for love, for attention, for respect, don't know how to respond to someone who isn't performing at all. Here's what makes it even more intimidating. She doesn't reject others out of bitterness. She simply doesn't need them to feel whole. That kind of psychological self-sufficiency feels threatening to those who depend on others to feel valuable. Being around her forces people to confront their emotional dependencies, their insecurities, their performative lifestyles, and that's uncomfortable. There's no desperate need to be seen, no hunger to belong, no begging to be chosen. She chooses herself every time. And in a world built around groupthink and constant noise, the woman who moves in silence because she wants to becomes the loudest thing in the room. And that, more than anything, is why she intimidates. Number 2. She makes people question their entire persona, silently. She doesn't have to say a word. The moment she walks into a room, something shifts, not in her, but in everyone else. People who are usually loud suddenly speak softer. Those who rely on charm to dominate attention find their tricks don't land. And those who wear carefully crafted personas, confidence masks, fake humility, overly curated likability, start to feel off, like something's being seen that shouldn't be. That's because the Sigma female doesn't engage in surface-level behavior. She doesn't laugh to be polite. She doesn't fake interest to keep the peace. Her energy is clean, unperformative, and unapologetically real. And when you're around that kind of raw presence, it acts like a mirror, a brutally honest one. Without even trying, she exposes what others have spent years trying to hide: insecurities, contradictions, borrowed identities. People begin to question the roles they've clung to. Am I confident, or do I just talk a lot? Am I kind, or do I just hate being disliked? Her authenticity doesn't just stand out, it silently confronts the inauthenticity around her. And what really rattles people is that she isn't judging them. She's not mocking or analyzing out loud, she's just observing. And somehow that's even worse. Because when someone looks at you and doesn't react, you start reacting to yourself. Your voice feels too loud, your opinions feel borrowed, your whole identity starts to feel like a costume you've been wearing too long. The Sigma female doesn't have to challenge anyone directly. She just exists in her truth. And that makes people feel like frauds in their own skin. That quiet unraveling, that internal spiral people go through when she's around. It's not because she's cruel, it's because she's real. And in a world where most people are performing, reality is the most terrifying thing you can bring into the room. Number 3. She doesn't give enemies a battle, just erasure. The Sigma female doesn't do public confrontations, dramatic call-outs, or back-and-forth arguments. She doesn't need to. When someone crosses a line or reveals their toxicity, she doesn't explode. She extracts quietly, cleanly, permanently. There's no emotional meltdown, no cryptic Instagram story, no revenge plot. She doesn't waste energy proving she's right or exposing someone's lies. That would require caring enough to engage. And to a Sigma female, engaging with someone beneath her standards isn't strength. It's weakness disguised as pride. So she simply removes the person from her mental landscape as if they never existed. And that kind of surgical indifference, it cuts deeper than any insult ever could. What makes this terrifying is the absence. Most people are used to conflict being loud and visible. When someone's mad at you, they argue, they cry, they fight. But when the Sigma female is done with you, there's nothing. No closure, no drama, no chance to redeem yourself. You don't even get blocked. That would be acknowledgement. You just become invisible, erased. To people who thrive on reactions, attention seekers, manipulators, emotional parasites, this is absolute annihilation. Their entire ego structure is built on being noticed, loved, hated, envied, something. But to the Sigma female, they're nothing. And realizing that, it's psychological death. What's more brutal is that she keeps glowing without you. She doesn't fall apart. She doesn't need sympathy. She simply upgrades her life and never once mentions your name. She'll walk past you with the same energy she gives to a wall. And that quiet, graceful detachment is more powerful than any revenge ever could be. She doesn't give you the satisfaction of a battle, because in her world you're not an opponent, you're just deleted. Number 4, her rejection isn't verbal, it's energetic. When a Sigma female rejects you, it's not loud, it's not messy. It doesn't come with explanations or dramatic exits. It just is. One minute you think you're in her world, and the next, you realize you've been quietly shut out. No words, no warning, just a sudden shift in the air that tells you you're no longer welcome. She doesn't need to say, "I'm not interested," or "You've crossed a line." Her energy handles it. You'll feel it in the way she no longer leans in the way her responses become colder, not rude but distant. The warmth is gone, the spark is dead, and there's a heavy silence that you can't quite explain. It's like walking into a room you used to belong in, only to realize the door's still open. But you're no longer invited. And the worst part? You can't pinpoint exactly what happened. She didn't insult you. She didn't lash out. She didn't even roll her eyes. But something inside you just knows. You've been dismissed. Your presence no longer matters. You've lost access to her space, her attention, her light. And that kind of quiet dismissal is far more painful than a loud rejection, because it leaves no evidence, no fight, no moment to hold on to, just absence. People who thrive on drama or emotional validation spiral under this kind of rejection. They can't figure out what went wrong. And that confusion drives them insane. They try harder, they push, they test. And the more they reach for her, the more they realize she's not pulling away, she's already gone. Emotionally, mentally, energetically, disconnected. To the Sigma female, rejection isn't about punishing someone, it's about preserving her peace. If you disturb that peace, she'll cut the energetic cord without a second thought. No show, no announcement, just pure icy detachment that you'll feel in your bones and never forget. Number 5, she's not easily seduced. She's studying the seducer. Flirting with a Sigma female is like stepping into a psychological trap you didn't know you triggered. While most people get flattered, blush, or get swept up in the moment, she stays still, watching, calculating, decoding. She doesn't get lost in compliments or charm. She takes them apart. She doesn't just hear what you're saying. She hears why you're saying it. She studies your tone, your pauses, your choice of words. Every wink, every line, every calculated move gets analyzed like a chess strategy. And while you think you're pulling her in, she's already mapped your patterns, spotted your emotional leverage points, and figured out exactly what game you're playing. And that's the thing. Sigma females don't respond to seduction, they reverse engineer it. You might walk in thinking you're the hunter, but she's the kind who lets you flirt, gives you just enough rope, and then watches what you do with it. Most people seduce to gain control or validation. She watches to see what you're really after: power, attention, approval, and the moment she sees through it, the game's over. Not with anger, not with judgment, with silence and subtle detachment. She doesn't reject you with drama. She just sees the performance, understands the script, and loses all interest. That's what's unnerving. You feel exposed, like your tricks were seen for exactly what they are: childish. And if the seducer is used to being the most magnetic person in the room, this can be a crushing ego blow. They're not used to being watched like an experiment. They're not used to their charm failing. But with a Sigma female, it doesn't just fail, it backfires. Because once you realize she wasn't enchanted by you, but quietly dissecting you, it leaves you feeling small, transparent, and completely disarmed. She's not playing hard to get. She's just not playing at all. Number 6. She intimidates by never being intimidated. People throw everything at her: power plays, passive aggression, backhanded compliments, even outright disrespect, hoping to get a rise. But the Sigma female doesn't flinch, she doesn't break, she doesn't even blink. And that calm, unfazed stillness, it's not just strength, it's psychological dominance. In a world where most people are reactive, where insecurity hides under sarcasm and false confidence, her emotional neutrality is jarring. You can't manipulate her with guilt because she doesn't carry shame. You can't impress her with status because she's immune to hierarchy. You can't rattle her with gossip, drama, or mind games because she doesn't care to play. And the unsettling part? She doesn't meet your energy. She forces you to meet hers. People find themselves raising their voices while she stays silent. They try harder to be funny, louder to be heard, or colder to seem unbothered, and she just watches. Not with judgment, but with eerie detachment. That stare that says, "Is this who you really are?" That's what hits hardest. Because the Sigma female isn't trying to win a power struggle. She's just not participating in it. And people who build their identities around dominance, performance, or approval can't handle that. Her refusal to engage feels like rejection. Her indifference feels like humiliation. Her composure makes others feel exposed. Not because she's doing anything wrong, but because she's not reacting the way they expect her to. And when someone can't be shaken, provoked, or baited, people start to feel foolish. All their tricks, all their tactics, all their attempts to win suddenly look performative. The Sigma female doesn't need to defend herself. She just stands in her truth and lets your reflection in her silence do all the damage. That's the real intimidation. It's not her being cold, it's her being unaffected. In a world addicted to reaction, the woman who remains still becomes the one who truly shakes the ground. Number 7. She creates psychological distance without moving an inch. She doesn't need to walk away, raise her voice, or say something cruel to make you feel distant. She can be right there, nodding, listening, even smiling, and yet somehow you feel completely shut out. That's the chilling power of the Sigma female's emotional detachment. It's not loud, it's surgical. While most people rely on emotional closeness to bond, eye contact, warmth, openness, she controls her energy with precision. If you've lost her trust, crossed a line, or simply failed to impress her deeper instincts, she'll pull back in a way that's invisible to most, but devastating to the person on the receiving end. You'll feel the disconnect, even if everything on the surface seems fine. And that's what messes with people the most. There's no confrontation, no big moment, just distance. Quiet, unspoken distance. This psychological freeze can trigger people's deepest insecurities, especially those who are used to being chased, validated, or emotionally catered to. Suddenly their jokes don't land. Their opinions seem ignored. Their presence feels irrelevant, and it gnaws at them. They start over-explaining, over-performing, overreaching, anything to bridge the emotional gap. But the Sigma female doesn't move. She lets the distance sit there like an invisible wall. And here's the brutal part. She's not doing it to punish you. She's doing it because it's her boundary. Once she senses emotional instability, manipulation, or surface-level connection, she simply retracts. Not in a dramatic way, just enough to protect her peace. And that subtle, elegant withdrawal, it hits people in their core. It reminds them of every time they've felt overlooked, unworthy, or emotionally abandoned. Because she doesn't need to raise her voice to create impact. Her silence does the talking. Her presence, once inviting, becomes out of reach. And when you realize you're sitting next to someone who made you feel seen yesterday, but makes you feel invisible today, it's a quiet kind of heartbreak, one you never even saw coming. Number 8. She kills false intimacy with cold precision. People love to bond fast, overshare a childhood wound, sprinkle in some self-deprecating humor, maybe drop a vulnerable story or two, and boom, instant closeness. It works on most people, but not on a Sigma female. She sees it for what it is. Emotional performance disguised as connection, and she doesn't bite. The moment someone tries to trauma dump their way into her inner circle, she goes cold, not cruel, but clinical. Her eyes shift from engaged to indifferent. Her body language closes off just slightly, and suddenly, what felt like an intimate moment turns into a quiet kind of exposure. Not because she shamed the person, but because she refused to participate in the illusion. She knows that real intimacy is earned, not forced. It grows from consistency, depth, time, not from impulsive vulnerability weaponized to extract sympathy or trust. So when someone tries to fast-track emotional closeness, she sees it as manipulation, even if it's unconscious, and she meets it with something far more uncomfortable than rejection, non-reaction. That lack of engagement leaves people squirming. They start questioning themselves. Was I too much? Did I misread the moment? Why did she just go silent? That internal awkwardness isn't her being distant. It's them realizing their usual tactics didn't work. And when charm or vulnerability doesn't land, people feel embarrassed, exposed, like they just performed on a stage no one asked them to be on. The Sigma female's refusal to play along isn't meant to hurt, but it does reveal. It reveals how often people confuse disclosure with connection. It reveals how addicted society is to fake closeness and instant validation. And most of all, it reveals how rare it is to meet someone who won't hand over emotional intimacy just because you asked for it. She doesn't do bonding through shortcuts. And when someone tries to take one, they learn the hard way. Her cold precision doesn't destroy them. It just forces them to see the performance they've been mistaking for truth. Number 9. She doesn't perform femininity for comfort. She doesn't adjust her tone to seem softer. She doesn't force a smile to smooth tension. And she definitely doesn't shrink herself to make others feel more comfortable. The Sigma female exists outside the performance of what society tells women they should be. Gentle, agreeable, endlessly polite. She doesn't rebel loudly against those norms. She simply ignores them. And that quiet refusal? It unsettles people more than open defiance ever could. People are used to women who play a role, who smile even when they're irritated, who soften their words to avoid offending, who prioritize being liked over being real. The Sigma female skips all that, not to prove a point, but because it feels fake. She says what she means. She lets silence linger. She doesn't tone herself down to seem nicer. And for many, especially those conditioned to believe that femininity means pleasing others, this feels threatening. She's not rude, she's just raw, unfiltered. And that level of honesty, when it comes without apology or performance, exposes how many people are faking it. Her authenticity becomes a mirror. People realize how often they sugarcoat, people please, or bend their identity to fit in, and suddenly they feel self-conscious around her. Not because she's judging them, but because her very existence makes it harder to keep pretending. She doesn't use her femininity as a social tool. She doesn't flirt for favor, charm for leverage, or pacify egos to maintain peace. Her energy is steady, unapologetic, and untouched by the need for approval. And that makes her unpredictable in a way people can't place. She's not cold, but she won't comfort you with lies. She's not harsh, but she won't pretend for your ego. To those who conform, her presence feels like a disruption. But to those who value truth over likability, she's magnetic. Either way, she makes people realize that femininity doesn't have to be palatable. And for many, that realization is both terrifying and freeing. Number 10. She commands loyalty without asking for it. She doesn't demand loyalty, she doesn't manipulate it, she doesn't earn it by coddling or controlling. And yet, somehow, people find themselves fiercely loyal to her, without contracts, without pressure, without even understanding how it happened. It's not about charm or charisma, it's something deeper, an unshakable energy that says, I don't need you, but I respect you. That kind of independence draws people in, especially those who are tired of relationships built on obligation, fear, or ego games. With the Sigma female, loyalty isn't extracted, it's inspired. People feel it naturally, almost instinctively, because she makes them want to protect what she stands for. She doesn't ask for favors. She doesn't beg for support. But when she finally lets someone into her world, even just a little, it feels sacred. Her presence carries weight. Her words are rare, and when she does speak, it's with clarity and truth that's hard to forget. She makes people feel seen, not because she flatters them, but because she understands them. And that creates a loyalty that doesn't need to be spoken. It just is. But here's where it gets interesting. People in positions of power, managers, leaders, even dominant personalities, often don't know how to handle this kind of quiet influence. They see that others listen to her, respect her, even follow her, without her ever asserting authority. And that shakes them, because they've built their status through control, hierarchy, and structure. She builds hers through presence alone. They try to assert dominance, but it feels performative next to her calm confidence. They try to outshine her, but she's not even in competition. And that realization that someone can hold power without seeking it creates a quiet panic in people whose leadership depends on being needed. She doesn't need followers. She attracts loyalty. And that difference? It makes the loudest voices in the room feel small, without her ever raising hers. Number 11. She doesn't react, she vanishes. When things get messy, most people either fight back, explain themselves, or try to fix it. The Sigma female does none of that. She doesn't waste energy trying to prove her point, defend her boundaries, or teach someone how to treat her. She simply disappears. No dramatic speech, no closure, just silence and absence. Her vanishing act isn't passive aggression or immaturity, it's power. It's her way of saying, this situation is beneath me. And the people she leaves behind? They're left in confusion, spiraling, replaying every moment, trying to figure out what triggered her departure. That's when the mirror shows up, because her silence doesn't just create distance. It creates reflection. Most people expect a reaction. They want a fight, something to justify their behavior or help them feel like they're still in control. But when a Sigma female walks away without a word, it creates a vacuum, one that forces people to sit with the exact thing they were trying to avoid, their own behavior. That's when the questions start. Was I toxic? Did I push too far? Why didn't she even argue? And that's what makes her exit so haunting. She leaves with such clean detachment it feels surgical. She doesn't slam the door, she erases the room. And because there's no emotional mess to distract from the damage, people are left staring straight at themselves. No one to blame, no one to engage. Just the deafening silence of being ignored by someone who saw everything and decided they were done. She doesn't disappear to punish. She disappears to protect. And she knows that no punishment hits harder than someone realizing they were never worth the fight to begin with, that her peace mattered more than their presence, that they weren't even worth a reaction. And in a world addicted to attention and conflict, the one who vanishes without a trace becomes unforgettable. Number 12. She doesn't need to correct you, she'll just watch you crash. The Sigma female doesn't waste her breath trying to save people from themselves. She sees the cracks forming long before the collapse, but she doesn't step in with advice, warnings, or lectures. Why? Because she knows something most people don't. Some lessons can't be taught. They have to burn. People expect confrontation when they're wrong. They expect a debate, an emotional pushback, maybe even a dramatic reaction. But the Sigma female, she gives them none of that. She watches, quietly, fully aware of the outcome that's coming, yet completely uninterested in stopping it. Not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. She's learned that when people aren't ready to listen, speaking is just noise. She doesn't get off on saying, "I told you so." In fact, she won't say anything at all, because the moment you disrespected her wisdom or ignored her presence, she mentally stepped back. Not in anger, but in knowing. She saw the ego, the denial, the arrogance, and chose not to interfere. That kind of silence is powerful. It unnerves people, especially when they eventually crash and realize she knew it would happen all along. That distant calm wasn't passive, it was precision. She didn't argue because she had already calculated the fall, and when it finally hits, that moment of impact, it's brutal. Not just because of the failure, but because you remember her eyes, the way she watched, not with hate, but with detached clarity. That memory haunts people more than any words could. Her restraint isn't weakness, it's the strongest move she has. Letting someone walk straight into their own downfall, knowing she could have stopped it, but choosing not to. That's not cold, that's lethal indifference. And it teaches people something they never forget. Just because she's quiet doesn't mean she didn't see everything. She just knew you wouldn't listen, so she let the truth teach you instead. She doesn't intimidate by raising her voice, demanding attention, or flexing dominance. She intimidates by not needing any of that at all. The Sigma female is a walking contradiction to the world's expectations, silent but powerful, detached yet deeply aware, uninterested in control yet constantly commanding it without effort. What makes her so unsettling to others isn't what she does, but what she refuses to do. She doesn't engage in drama, perform femininity, or beg for validation. She doesn't argue when she can exit, doesn't fight when silence will slice deeper, doesn't chase approval because she's already chosen herself. And in doing so, she holds a mirror up to everyone else, and many can't stand what they see reflected back. Her power is in her discipline. Her mystery is in her clarity. She's not intimidating because she wants to be feared. She's intimidating because she can't be controlled. And that, in a world addicted to dominance and manipulation, is a threat few know how to handle. So whether she's walking away without a word, slicing through false intimacy with a glance, or sitting in calm silence while others spiral for attention, one thing is always true. The Sigma female doesn't need to prove anything. She is the proof. If you found this content as raw, honest, and eye-opening as it was meant to be, don't just scroll away. Hit that subscribe button and become part of a community that doesn't do surface level. Like the video if you felt the power of the Sigma female's presence. Drop a comment and share your thoughts, your experiences, or even just one line that hit you hardest. And of course, share this video with someone who needs to understand the kind of quiet strength the world still underestimates. This isn't just content, it's clarity. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.